So this session is about from local to global, and how to access the global market. There are three ways that I've broken it down to just make it quite simple, because 45 minutes is not a long time. But the first thing is one, do you have an organization? If yes, then the next question is, how have you structured the organization? Do you have processes in place to scale? Because sometimes success can become your failure if you're not structured to scale. So we're going to look at how do you structure to scale. And the next thing I want us to look at is your ICP, your ideal customer persona. In other words, your avatar. To really, really drill down, because some people will say, "Oh, I want, like you're saying, I want my food in every home." Yes, but in order to go through the door, we need to know what door we're going through. So your ICP, I'm gonna give you notes so you can write in it. Your ICP is important, or your avatar, whatever you want to call it. But that's your ideal customer persona. We need to be able to design the person and give the person a name. I'm not saying that you don't have other people that would buy your products or your service, but we want to be focusing on one person. Yeah. And once we've got that, we're now going to look at, where does that person go? Where is that person? Where do they drink water? Where do they meet? What social media platform do they use? And where do they, just what I mean? Because wherever they are is where you then want to go with your business. So when we go back a step to the ideal person, your avatar, now to go global, you can look at, okay, I'm servicing Ashford. I want to service Gillingham. I want to service Cameroon. But who in Cameroon? So that's why it's important to know who that avatar is, so that when you go to the Cameroon market, you're looking for that person. Does that make sense? So that's kind of what I want us to look at today. Yeah. So I've done this, which is a quick guide for you. We'll go through this together so that it's hands-on for you. And there are pens on the table, so if you haven't got one, feel free to help yourself. And there are post-it notes here if you want to scribble on it. Yeah. So like I said, the first thing is, don't fill it in. As we go through, we'll look at it. You can put the paper down. That's just a guide for us to use. Let's look at, what is your product or your service? Have you been able to whittle it down to say, this is my service, this is my product, and this is the problem I'm solving? Because it's okay to have a product and it's okay to have a service, but if you're not solving a problem, if you're not doing something with it, what's the impact it's making? Are you going into a saturated market, or are you actually taking the time to look at who my audience is and how can I help them? What am I doing for them? What's the obstacle they have, and how do I get past that to get to them? Does that make sense? So for now, I just want us to each think about it and then share, if you're ready. What is your value proposition? What's the problem you're solving? Do you know what that is? Thank you. Anyone else? Now, everything you've said, you're going to have to say that in a sentence with 5 words or less. And that's your value proposition. So how do you condense that to 5 words or less to say pam, 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 pam? And that's what you write down here as your value proposition. Yeah? So anyone else? Okay, you see what's happening here. Sorry to interrupt. You're focusing on you. Let's shift. Who? Do you see what I mean? So whose problem are you solving? That's the work.
Tough one there, because it sounds like the sort of clients that you're attracting are new entry line managers, entry level managers who probably got maybe 10, 20 years experience in the technical field, but now they're now doing
Leadership,
management,
yes.
leadership bit, but they're not there yet.
They're not. So I would say, I want to say that in what you're doing as HR, the race should not be your first thing.
That's the thing.
It doesn't matter that that's who you're attracting, but that's not that. You don't.
Limiting.
It's not. Do you see what I'm saying? So I would say,
but the avatar, the person I'm looking at.
When we look at the persona, yes, but for the value proposition is different. So that's where we get it mixed up. You get what I mean? Yeah. Because then if someone else comes along that doesn't match that, you would say no to money because you're busy looking at the wrong thing. So your value is different from the person. Yeah. The fact that I sell cakes, anybody can buy my cakes. Anybody can buy your food. But it doesn't mean you're not targeting a specific person. Yeah. Okay. So what about you? What's your value proposition? Okay. Yeah. So it's key things like that. You've mentioned plant-based, you've mentioned health, you've mentioned ready-made, you mentioned accessible. So these are things you need to think about, that's the problem you're solving. is accessible, healthy, ready-made, plant-based. Do you see what I mean? That's the value proposition. Now, when you now think about who you're offering it to, is yourself. So your avatar, you then have to be able to describe you, a busy mom of four, blah, 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 blah. Do you get how we break this down? We literally have to go down to where do they buy their clothes? Where is the detail? If you're going to scale to go global, it's a crazy world out there. So you need to be looking at one person, just one person. Everybody else will come along, but it has to be one person. Okay? So if we, yeah,
Something
yeah, that's important to her. So you make sure it's a value. That's the point. So if you don't know what the value is, I don't know. I don't know it's delicious until I've eaten it. But if you tell me it's delicious, oh, okay, that's another. If delicious is important to me, then that's a value. Do you see? So by picking up those things, that's your value proposition. So do write down what is your value proposition. 5 words or less.
4 words or less. 5 words or less. We need ChatGPT.
That's the thing, because it doesn't matter if you don't get to 5 today, but at least you know that that's what you're going for. But is there a someone who has a challenge that your entertainment is a solution to? Does that make sense? So you need to go deeper beyond I'm entertaining. What's that? That's not value. If you get down to what the value is, like look at look at the adjectives, how you describe it. You're adding more to it. You increase your price just by adding the value. So you need to get down to, especially if you're going to go to a global market where there's even more competition, your value must be at the forefront. Because if it isn't valuable, is it sellable? Do you get what I mean? So you need to
Creating
really
an excitable, thriving environment.
you
That's entertainment, but
need
in
yes,
a lot
you
more
need to
words.
get to the heart. You need to get to the heart of it.
Yeah,
To get
it's
to
live,
that.
it's live, it's professional, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Exciting.
Because it's soul.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's soul. I know your music. It's emotion. For you, it's soul. It's soul. Do you see what I mean? So it's not entertainment. I can go to Netflix for entertainment. So that's the point. So it doesn't matter that what you do is entertainment. For me, I do organization development, but I'm not going to start and say I do OD. I'll tell you I maximize enterprise value. I'm making your business worth more. How am I doing it? Then I'll tell you organizational development. So you don't start with entertainment. What you're doing is not entertainment. You're giving something through entertainment. So you need to get to what that something is. Yeah. So that's your task.
Is this almost kind of linked back to almost trying to determine your purpose,
Spot
your
on.
why?
Spot on.
So that's
Spot
where
on.
you're going with that.
Spot on. Spot on. Because if you're
Definitely done this before.
if you're going to go beyond your geography, you have to know why.
Yeah.
You have to know why. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is your ICP. So that ideal customer persona. I don't know the amount of times I meet businesses and they say, oh, everybody's my customer. I don't disagree. You're not wrong. However, we can't target everybody. Yeah. So let's say if you stand for, how do you say, if you stand for everything, you fall for nothing. So let's describe a person. And most times the person is you. Many businesses I've met in the many years I've done this, it starts from them, or it's their mom, or it depends on what their motivation is, why they started. So if you figure out what your why is, you can almost draw your avatar from there. So if you just take a minute and write down their post-it notes or in your just scribble down a couple of descriptions about who your ideal customer is. If you had a choice who you sell to, who would it be? It could be large corporates, it could be a bride. What type of bride? What specific bride? Is it a family? What specific family? How many children? Where do they live? What's their earning capacity?
You bring race into this.
You can. You can bring it down to language, whittle it down as much as, because if you say your focus is on Igbo speaking Anambra State, black women with 4 kids, you can, and you would find them. You see what I mean? So you target your marketing at them, but then you have the ripple effect on everybody else. So that's what you want to do, is whittle it down as much as you can. Write down as many characteristics as you can of this ideal person. Just imagine there's only one person in the world you have to sell to. Where do they shop? Do they shop in Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Iceland? Where do they buy their clothes? Or do they go to Primark? Or do they go to Selfridges? Because if your clients are shopping in Selfridges, there's no point putting Walmart in Tesco. That's the point. That's why. There's no need saying I put it in Tesco. I've sold 300 packs and there's no money in the bank account. When you could have put it in Selfridges and sell it for 5 times more, because that's where your customer is. So that's why you need to know what their habits are. Where do they go? What else is affiliated with your brand? That while I'm picking up this, I'll pick this up too. So where are they selling that? Sometimes we have to think non-traditionally, especially when going global with products. There's a variety there. So I think when after this session, look through and see what is the common link between what size of charity, what size of business. Is it a national charity? Is it a small single owner charity? Is it, do you see what I mean? You just bring it all the way down as much as you can, and you would find the similarities between that organization and the next one. And then that's the main thing there. It could be organizations who only have 5 teams, who only have 10 teams, regional leaders. You can break it down even further for yours. Yeah. What about you, Ebony?
So mine is it's different.
Pensioners.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, when you do your marketing, do you market in those places? Okay. That's my point. That's the point. You get it. You get the point of understanding your person, because you've described it's baby boomers who've just retired. So your everything you should be doing, you should be anything Waitrose is doing, you should be part of it. Anything they're doing, you should be part of it. You should become a brand influencer in Waitrose. You see what I mean? That's the kind of relationship you want, so that Waitrose National knows you, and when they're doing anything, you're the one they call up to entertain. That's the advantage of identifying to the core who your ICP is. Yeah, with one more.
Oh no,
Let me
taste that.
and
Yeah,
cut it into 6.
Yeah, taste that.
As I put it in my mouth, what do you think I'll be doing? It works. Magic.
So
Magic.
So
Try
she's made
it
the point about
and do it.
tasting. The tasting bit, she's made the
We
point.
did a tasting
Yeah,
session at
yeah.
Edinburgh last year.
And how many orders did you get on the spot?
Oh, by then we hadn't started.
Okay.
So that's what.
Anywhere
that's
you're
part of the
going,
brand building.
Anywhere you're going, your flyer is not relevant. I can tell you from experience. Take your money with you. Try it and prove me wrong. Yeah? Your market entry, because your product is food. Okay, sorry to bring you back into the room. Right. So, do you want to go global? Is the question. Is that yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So, look at the list here. Entry strategies. This is your typical entry strategy. What are you looking at? Are you looking at exporting? If you're a service, are you looking at licensing? Now, for those of us who are service oriented, you have to convert your service into a product to be able to scale it. Do you know what that means? Yeah? Okay. Ebony, you're a service as well. Do you understand what it means to convert your service to a product to be able to sell it? You think so?
For me, I guess it's selling myself as a soul singer, and then I can do whatever.
Can we put you in a post box and send you?
I can fly
You
somewhere
could
and go.
spot on.
Yeah,
So
my
product, it could be
destination
you, it could be something you've recorded, it could be your music on Spotify, it could be you've written a script on how to do something, you create content, articles, those are all products. So you need to talk about singing, talk about your audience, talk about all of that are all products. So if you have a service, you have to convert the service into multiple products, because that's what scales is the products itself. Because there's only one Ebony, you can't be here and be in Ghana and be at the same time. So you can only be in one place at the same time. But if you create products, you've multiplied yourself. Do you see what I mean? So you have to think about how do you create products out of your service, because that's how you scale. Otherwise, there's only one you. The best you can do is increase your value. So I go from charging £500 an hour to charging 1,000. That's the best you can do, because you're exchanging time for money. But if you convert into products, you can have multiple products, merchandise, things like that. You have to think that way to be able to scale. And those are things you can export. You can create a license. Can you create a license, a singing license? You see what I mean? Can there be something like a singing academy? Could there be different things like that you can think about? Yeah. Franchising is another option. Joint ventures. Can I partner with someone else? Like I was saying before, who sells Gary? Who sells Agidi? That you partner with. Do you see what I mean? Um,
In a long time.
E-commerce is another thing. If you've got products, like for you, you've got a product. Can you put it on an e-commerce platform? Does that work? Direct investment. Again, do you have to set up an office somewhere? For you, do you need to put a kitchen somewhere else to produce the same thing somewhere? So there are different routes to global entry. Again, it could be that your product itself, the momo, is not what you sell, but the recipe can go global. You see what I mean? You can create a Moi Moi club. Just think outside of the box when it comes to going global, because it might not be the same thing you start with that you take with you. Yeah? Okay? We've run out of time. But at the back of it, I've given you a quick sheet of self assessment so you can score yourself and see where you are in your readiness guide. So let's do that quickly. So, number one, so just say yes or no to each question and then score yourself at the end. So, what's your score out of 10?
22 points.
Where you at?
I think I'm a 7.5.
Nice. That's good. Ebony?
I'm staying in the UK.
That's so funny.